Ever since I was a kid and I picked up the guitar, I knew music was my thing. I played trumpet in the school band, I started writing my own songs and performing anywhere I could. And when I turned 18, graduated high school, and it was time for college, I had no doubt in my mind that I would be a music major. What followed were 4 years of confusion, frustration, and battles that ultimately led me to my degree, a Bachelor's of Arts in Music. But at what cost? Well, literally, it costs a lot of money, and I will answer that question with a dollar amount so that we can answer the question today, is music school worth it? So the big question is, how much did it cost? Well, here's a couple qualifications. I went to school between 2010 and 2014. I commuted to school, no dorm. I went to a state university, and I received a full tuition scholarship all 4 years. So take your guesses. What do you think, based on all of that information, did I pay for music school? I would love to see your guesses in the comments before it's revealed, and then your reactions to the real number. But here it is. Here's what it cost me to go to music school. Yes, over $30,000, of which I am still paying back, and I'll talk more about the money side of things in a bit. But first, I want to talk a little bit about what I actually studied, what I didn't study, and what I was pretty much almost forbidden to study. Generally, how music majors work is you have a principal instrument or a concentration. So if you're a singer, you're going to study voice. If you're a drummer, you're going to study the drums. And you'll be assessed on your skills on that particular instrument every year. You have foundational classes like theory, keyboarding, sight singing, and you work your way up through those foundations over your time at school. You'll also be a part of various ensembles, usually based on your concentration. So if you're a singer, you might sing in the jazz quartet. If you're a trumpet player, you might play in the wind ensemble. While some of these classes will really help to build you up with a strong foundation for music, a lot of them are really based in theoretical or historical trivia. And they're not going to really offer you any value if you're somebody who wants to have a career in the music industry. Except for in two cases. One, you're going to become a teacher who's just going to go to school, learn some trivia, and then go teach that trivia back to more students, and the cycle continues. Or you really want to go on Jeopardy, you really love trivia, and you're really hoping when you go on there's going to be a music category, because I tell you, you'll be able to learn some fun facts at music school for the low price of $30,000 or more. Believe it or not, I haven't found much practical use for my knowledge of what a German augmented sixth chord is. On top of that, at a liberal arts school like where I went, you have to study some core curriculum stuff, basically high school 2.0. English, math, foreign languages. These are requirements, and I'm pretty much convinced that these exist only to keep students in the school for at least 4 years, because, by the way, if there's a scheduling conflict between one of your requirements for your music major and one of your core requirements, like an English class, and you can't find a way to work around that conflict, two classes happening at the same time, well, you're going to have to push one of those classes off to another semester, and you might just have to enroll in an extra semester, or if that requirement only runs in the spring for some reason, you might have to go to school for a whole nother year just because you missed one little requirement along the way. Say, an algebra class that is required for you as a music major. And the issues for me started at the most basic level, choosing a principal instrument, choosing that concentration. Some schools, including Berkeley, they now allow you to choose laptop as your concentration. The laptop is your instrument, but back when I was in school, that was not yet a thing, and many schools actually still look down upon this today. So I entered into school with a trumpet concentration. This was the only instrument that I had ever been formally trained on because I played it in the school band, but I didn't really have an interest in pursuing that professionally or at a very high level. So I quickly bounced off that. And since I had been doing the singer-songwriter thing for a while, I decided I would become a voice concentration because, that could help me in something that I was actually doing outside of school. But this didn't work out too well either. You see, my school only offered jazz and classical voice as possible concentrations. There's no option to be a contemporary vocalist or even a pop vocalist, and God forbid you even listen to or admit that you enjoy music that is popular in the current day, because that is extremely looked down upon by a lot of professors and also a lot of students who want to impress those professors. It's the elitism that I think music school is most well known for. So I often didn't get to pick the music that I wanted to sing, and I often had to sing jazz songs, which I had very little interest in. And a lot of schools do fall into this trap where you can only explore areas of classical or jazz music, and the world of the current music industry is kind of locked off to you. So you see this cycle that happens where people go to music school, they learn things about the classical world, the jazz world, a lot of fun trivia, a lot of highly advanced theory, and then they get out into the world and they realize, I can't actually use any of this in a lot of cases. And then ultimately, many of them go on to become teachers and professors themselves. And since they only have that core knowledge that they learned in school, they just perpetuate this cycle. Now, I had some fantastic professors. Not all professors are just locked into this classical and jazz world. Some of them do acknowledge a musical world outside of those two genres. But unfortunately, they're often the minority, and they face very uphill battles in trying to change core curriculum at schools, because it turns out if you challenge the status quo at an institution like a university, suddenly the people that have only been trained in the status quo feel very threatened by that. What I knew I wanted to do in college was create original electronic music with my laptop, the thing I do today pretty much every day professionally. So at my school, I found a way to make this work under the composition concentration. And there was a great opportunity for me in that, because there was a professor named Jing Wang. She's a fantastic professor, and she's a world-class erhu player, one of the only virtuosos on this instrument in the world. But she was also highly involved in electronic music, and she opened me up to a world of exploring, processing instruments live. And she was an expert in things like Max MSP and jitter and super advanced electronic music stuff. But there was just one thing in my way. Ronald Sherwin.
Welcome to your visit to the College of Visual and Performing Arts here at UMass Dartmouth. My name is Dr. Sherwin, and I've had the privilege of serving as the chair of music since I first
The music department at my school had undergone a leadership change. So the new chair at my department, Ronnie, he didn't believe that we should have a music composition concentration. He actually believed that to be able to write for different instruments, you had to study each of them individually. And only then could you write for them, could you compose original music. This is something he actually said to me. Ronnie was so against supporting the original composition students that he wouldn't allow any department funds to go towards, helping those students create their original music, which is a big problem when you have a group of students writing original music for various ensembles, and they need to, pay ensembles to have that music performed at a professional level. But that wouldn't stop me. Since Ronnie wouldn't give us any money, the money that we were paying every single year to go to this school, I decided to go out and get it myself. So I actually got a grant from the Office of Undergraduate Research to hire an ensemble to come and play original student work. And even when the composition professor at the time asked the administration if they would help supplement this grant, chip in a little bit on top of what me, a student, already had to go out and get, the department still gave a resounding no, and no acknowledgement or no congratulations on receiving this grant at all. In fact, I don't think he even attended the concert. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, university budgets are tight. It might be difficult to manage all those finances. Maybe Ronnie really did want to support the composition students, but no. In the spring of my junior year, he made a big announcement to all the music majors that the composition concentration would no longer be allowed. Students may no longer choose to be a composition major. And we're not talking about some private school that's highly specialized. We're talking about a public university. And this is a huge threat to public education in general. You could be studying at a public university and a Ronnie could walk in and take away your ability to study something while you're studying it. To take away something so fundamental like the ability to study the composition of original music, that person must feel so threatened by the industry changing around them, so scared at the thought that somebody's going to wake up one day and realize, hey, you've got a PhD, but you're not accomplishing all that much. I mean, seriously, Ronnie, let's take a look at the productivity of your department and figure out how many of the graduates from your music department are actually going on to have full careers in the music world. Now, I survived relatively unscathed. I mean, financially quite scathed, but relatively unscathed. I was too far along in the process to be derailed, and I completed my college education with my senior recital, a night of original music, opening with an original electronic music composition called Rain, which would become the first performance that I would publish here on this channel. I would pursue teaching music in youth development settings, a relatively low-paying career, while at the same time building up my artistic practice until I could eventually move on and go full-time freelance like I am now. Now that was a yada yada to get to where we are today, but let's follow the money. If you're considering going to college for music, cost is probably one of the biggest factors in your trepidation. And like I said before, I paid $30,000 or a bit more than that to go to music school, but some colleges charge even more than that or close to that per semester. And remember how I mentioned I got a full tuition scholarship each year? You may be asking, how could I have paid this much with that full free tuition scholarship? Well, a big part of the scam of higher education is the schools themselves get to decide what is considered tuition, I think what most people would assume would be the bulk of the cost of going to college, and what is considered a mandatory fee. So, if the state of Massachusetts offers free tuition scholarships to state schools based on high test scores, those state schools can now just decide that the bulk of the cost of going to college will be shifted from tuition to fees. Fees that are not covered by your free tuition scholarship. An example of this is a random extra annual fee just based on your major. For music majors, an additional $849 for an applied music fee per course. Remember when we talked about concentrations and your principal instrument? Well, each week you'll meet with a professor and have a one-on-one lesson on your principal instrument. Like, this is the core reason, your core identity as a music major is what instrument you're concentrating on. Well, the cost of that lesson is not included in your tuition. It is an additional $1,700 per year to study the core subject, the core reason you're even at music school. There are lots of other ways that schools try to get your money outside of just the tuition. Health insurance, for instance. Most schools require that you have health insurance, and you actually have to manually opt out of the school's health insurance if you're already enrolled somewhere else. If you don't manually opt out, you'll be charged an additional $2,734. So hopefully you don't miss that email. Every year you have to opt out, or you'll be charged automatically. Not to mention, you're making these big financial decisions and trying to understand all of this fine print when you're around the age of 18, fresh out of high school. All I knew is you had to go to college to get a job. It's not like my parents put that much pressure on me in that respect. It's just what our society has been repeating for the past 20 years. This is a big problem, not just in music education, but with higher ed in general. And maybe you're thinking, well, these problems all seem very specific to you and your school and your use case, but I think a lot of these problems are systemic problems with higher education institutions and music programs in general. The elitism, the curriculum that's fearful of innovation because they don't have the people to teach what's happening now in the music industry. They only have people to teach what happened 6 months ago, a year ago, or worse, 50 years ago. These are major systemic problems with music school in general. Nearly everything I show you on this channel, from my process of making music to the theory-based videos, gear-based, production-based videos, All of that, or 95% of it, I had to learn after studying music for 4 years at college. But the full-time job I got after receiving my degree actually required a bachelor's degree. And I had a lot of really great formative experiences teaching at that job and learning ways to teach things in a more accessible way. And I had really great experiences, impactful experiences with the students that I met there, and they still impact me to this day. That being said, now this position really doesn't require a degree, and it wasn't unheard of to see, an assistant director get hired just based on their abilities and their experiences, and then when the predecessor moved on, that assistant director would move up to a director position, all without a degree. Today, I see more and more musicians able to get jobs and have great careers all without having a degree. Believe it or not, when I get asked to film and teach an online course around music, no one asks me if I have a degree or not. Unlike my good friend Ronnie, who simply had to impress a room of likely old white men, get a PhD, and now gets to sit in the highest position at a music department, all because of a meaningless credential. Not because he's proven himself as a great educator or even a great administrator, he's actually proven the opposite of that. And it's in the university's best interest to keep folks like Ronnie in their place, because once you start asking those hard-hitting questions, it becomes a lot more difficult to market your music department as a place that people should come spend their $30,000. Yes, so unlike Ronnie, the credentials of the modern musician and modern educator are fully public, and we're a lot more in demand and more accessible than the gate-kept ivory tower of a college music program. Want to know if somebody's a good teacher? Let's see what the people they've taught are saying. Want to know if somebody's an excellent performer? Let's check the tape. And do you know what happens now? Great musicians, great teachers, great performers get hired based on that. They get hired based on being great, not whether or not they have a degree. In closing, if you want to be a guitarist, you can find a world-class professional guitarist to study with. If you want to be a producer, you can find master classes with some of the world's best producers and engineers. And if you decide that the curriculum, the in-person community, the network, and the career opportunities that a college can bring are what you need to get to where you want to go, then by all means, go for it. But check if those things are really there, or if it's just marketing. Many colleges have free events and performances every year where you can go mix and mingle with the students and you can see actual student performances. Talk to some people, see if they're enjoying their time there, see if they think it's worth it. Is this a place you want to be? Are these people you want to be around all the time for 4 years? Does your desired career even require a degree? And then ask yourself if you can afford it. Does your desired career's salary afford you the ability to pay off those loans in a reasonable amount of time while also being able to afford a living? You ultimately will have to decide based on your personal situation, but my advice would be to exhaust every option before dropping a ton of cash on music school. And if you do decide to go, proceed with caution. Today's video was brought to you by my channel members. These are people that support the channel every single month, and there's a lot of perks that come with that membership, like free downloads, access to our Discord community, a bunch of members-only content like workshops here on the channel, some good supplementary material that you could use instead of going to music school. But I want to thank all the members for voting on this topic. We'll do a members-only video each month, so stay tuned for another poll where you guys can decide the next members-sponsored video. We will also be having a little bit of a fun tea spill stream, the details for which will be in the description down below, which you can join us live or watch later if you're seeing this later as a member, where I'll tell more anecdotes from my music school experience and you can come and ask questions. So come hang out at that or check out the video archive of that. It's a members only event, and I think we're gonna have a good time. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Tatro. Have a good one.